I was awake for this, right? So what had happened was we were dismantling the temporary bridge because we had already completed the project, and it's probably 20 feet tall, 40 feet long, and it's just made out of all steel I-beams, right? So guy in my crew, so I would climb up it, rig up the chain, he would, and then I'd climb down, he'd knock out these big mortar round looking pins, and he wasn't paying attention, and as I was walking up to it, he knocked out that pin, so it started to fall sideways. So I took off running, tried to jump over the K-rail, the concrete barriers on the freeway, and as I got halfway over it, it landed on top of me.
I feel like drug addicts have like a superpower.
Absolutely.
When we get clean and sober, we put our mind to anything, we get it done. And I think that everything that we go through with that addictive personality, the consequences, all that stuff, like if you can get through that, like it can get you through things like this too. And you didn't just get to the point where you walk. You're in better shape than 95% of the population out there that even steps foot into the gym.
It's like 6-9 months go by, and like I'm hitting these meetings, and I keep trying to find this guy, and I keep hearing from random people at meetings like, "Oh, that was you. You were that dude. I know the guy who saved you." I'm like, tell him thank you. Like, tell him I want to meet him. Some way, somehow, like our paths never crossed. I'm at a meeting, and I hear this guy speak. I like what he has to say. So I go up to him, and I'm like, "Hey, man, like I'm looking for a sponsor. Like, taking on anybody?" "No, I'm not, but here, take my number just in case." We exchange numbers. Like, I just have this weird feeling. It's like the next day he texts me. He's like, "Hey man, it was great to meet you last night. Like, you know, like I think that was on a Wednesday." He's like, "Same meeting meets on Friday." And so I was talking to my wife, and I was like, "Dude, I have a feeling like that this is that guy." She was like, "Well, ask him." I was like, "What do you mean ask him? Like, what do I say? Like, hey bro, did you find somebody that like OD'd like 9 months ago outside?" She was like, "Yeah." So I did, and long story short, turns out it was him. Kind of another God shot for me, because like that's who my sponsor is today.
Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we have a gentleman by the name of Adam. What's up, Adam?
What's going on, guys?
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use, and thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Ben?
Yes, sirree.
Right, Adam?
Absolutely.
Facebook group. Tell us about it.
Dude, Facebook, Real Recovery Talk support group. If you would like to get involved with that, just shoot a request. I can approve the invite. But we've been having some really good content on there. And the thing, I keep bringing this up, but I love watching the comment section. Like, it's really cool. There's been a lot of positive comments. People, like, the other day I did like a little pop quiz on a quote and what step it represents. And like, you know, nobody's answer is wrong within their experience, but like I was, you know, giving some details on it and specifically where it comes from and stuff. And it's just really cool to see people interacting on their takes and recovery. Because as everybody knows, it's not black and white, right? Nobody has monopoly on the recovery game.
Yeah. So it's at it's on Facebook, Real Recovery Talk. So there's a Facebook page, and then there's the Real Recovery Talk support group. Two separate things.
And I believe we're up to a couple hundred members now.
Are they having to put their email in though?
No, because yes, if they go through the Real Recovery Talk support group page, but a lot of them are actually going through my personal Facebook, because they're people that I know out in the community through my own recovery that I'm already friends with on Facebook that are picking up on it, so to speak.
Yeah, but I thought that in order to get into it, you had to put in your email.
Not if individual invites you. So anybody can invite anybody. I should bring that part up. Like if you're a member of the group, you can invite somebody else. It's not just admins that can do the invites.
I didn't have to.
You didn't have to put your email in?
No.
See, we got to get that set up because we got to get people's emails.
Why do we need the email, Tom? Bring that up.
Because we have a newsletter, and we want to be able to send people the newsletter. that has the updated episodes, because sometimes people, for whatever reason, the episode doesn't show up in your Apple feed or your Spotify feed. I mean, it will always show up, but I know I'm a podcast listener, and sometimes I don't, I subscribe to so many of them that if a new one comes out, it like gets pushed back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just to kind of update them, and then there's different content on there and stuff, and we have like little breakdowns of what the episodes are about and stuff like that.
Well, I asked you that, and I was kind of asking, like, I don't know, to go ahead and mention, like, I've seen the newsletter, obviously, and it is some pretty good content.
Yeah.
And I think the other part, like, I don't know, I'll just bring it up since we're talking about it, but if you've watched the evolution of our podcast and the YouTube channel, and I got to give a lot of credit to Tom for all the editing and really pioneering the whole thing. But over the course of time, I think we're hitting like a new spot where we're becoming more quote unquote professional about it. And it's giving us the opportunity to have more content, have more topics, have more professionals on. It's just really opening the doors for us to bring outside people on, because now we're being, like, honestly, we're getting so many requests from people to be on the podcast that I'm having a hard time scheduling them all. Like, it's fitting them all in. So it's cool. Like, so we're being able to, we have a bigger pool of people, so to speak, to, that way we can keep this fresh and it's not repetitive and we're always covering new things.
Yeah, exactly. So go to Facebook and join our group. Dang it. All right, Adam, here we are. I don't know you. This, I think, the first time we've met.
First time we have met.
I've heard your name probably in the hundreds of times up to this point. Believe it or not, yeah. From Ben and Destiny and Steve, and so you're very well known in the recovery community. And Ben had scheduled it, and here we are.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
What's really cool about being in the recovery community is there is genuine people. I'd like to bring up like how I met you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We met through a friend of a friend, and like, to be straight up with you, Weston, my 14-year-old, was playing tackle football, and all of a sudden, like, this random family shows up to the field, and we're like, yeah, man, we're here to support Weston. I'm like, who are you? And it's Adam, his wife Tara, and their daughter Alora, and like, it's just really cool that, like, they're the kind of people that just show up and they want to be around good people, and because they are good people, just very caring and giving. I think a lot of that ties into their fellowship aspect of the way that they do their recovery, which we'll get into more. But I just thought it's cool to mention like how we met. Like, it's like, hey man, I'm here to see your kid play football. I'm like, dude, we've never met before, but that's awesome. And it was like, there was like 10 of you.
No, I think that's pretty cool that you just go to the football game, and so in context, I know you as being that type of person, just very caring and, like, have a lot to offer the recovery community. That's why when Ben said, hey, let's have Adam on, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Normally, like, there's people that Ben and I have not in-depth discussions about people that want to come on, but like, we at least talk a few minutes, right. Like, hey, do you think it makes sense for this person to come on? Do you think it doesn't make sense? Yeah. Because listen, not everybody has a good message to share.
That's very true.
So, but anyways, the kind of the structure of the podcast, which you've listened to before, at least I think you have.
Once or twice.
It's very laid back. It's not scripted. It's organic conversation. So we'll just go from there. Just the way we like to get into it is basically just tell us, the audience, really a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you wound up in Florida, and then we'll get into like the nitty gritty as we go.
Okay, well, I'm born in Coral Springs, so I'm technically a Florida native. Moved around Florida till I was 15, and then family moved to Northern California. Don't hold that against me.
What part in Northern California?
Folsom, Sacramento area.
Yeah, okay.
Heard of Folsom Prison? Johnny Cash?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Yosemite.
Of course.
That was crazy. Ben, you been there?
No, I don't think so.
Oh my gosh.
Massive redwoods. It's wild.
Yeah, you know, to be honest with you, chances are I have been there. I just don't remember. I've traveled everywhere in the U.S.
I don't think
More
you would
places
forget
than
that.
I can remember.
I don't see how you could forget that unless you were extremely high, which
Or
very
young.
well could have. Yeah, but even then, like, dude, you know, you go
some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you can't forget it. Like you're standing at the bottom of what do they call it? El Capitan.
Yep.
Dude, it's like you're an ant. You know, like, could you imagine what an ant like is thinking standing at our feet? That's what you feel like when you're standing at the
Makes you feel
bottom.
small.
Yeah, like it really puts the world into perspective.
Word.
But anyway, so you're born in or raised in Northern California. Go ahead. I'm sorry I cut you
For the
off.
most part. Joined the Navy out of high school. Tell you the truth, that's where I first experimented with a few different substances.
I didn't realize you joined the Navy.
Yeah. Well, we'll backtrack a little bit. So started getting in trouble. Family decided to send me to an all guys high school. We moved to California, and I don't do well with that, I guess. Long story short, the way that I made friends was through substances. So I started selling weed. Somebody got caught, ratted me out. They searched my locker and found one of those Harry Potter books. I'd hollowed one of those out. And then the priest came to me and told me that God did not see fit for me to go to that school any longer.
That's kind of messed
He had
up.
the devil's lettuce.
Pretty much. That's really what it came down to. And then, yeah, joined the Navy out of high school. I had full intention of like traveling the world. That wasn't my experience. Went on a couple of small tours, and then our weapon system was being upgraded. So it was like a 9 to 5. And that's where I found exactly like how much I could drink and the limits I could push with myself. As soon as I got out, I kind of went buck wild, I guess.
How old were you when you got out?
21.
Yeah.
What'd you do? 4 years? 2 years?
Almost.
Almost 4 years?
Yeah. Joined straight out of high school, so right when I was 18. And then stayed in San Diego for a little bit, partied, fell into more and more substances. Really the next thing I know is I remember I moved back home, didn't work out in San Diego, and this was back in the day, so like I had never messed around with any sort of opiate before. That was a whole new world to me. So it was always like party drugs, ecstasy, Molly, some coke here and there. So like I come back and I reach out to all my old friends. Hey, like I'm back. Like let's have some fun. And they were like, yeah, we don't do that anymore. Like we mess with these things. And I was like, what is a thing? He's like, just come meet up with me. And I'll never forget it. It's these little green pills. Say 80 on one side and OC on the other. Tried it, immediately got sick, and the very next day went and did another one. Did another one. Didn't really understand like this whole like people getting sick thing. So like I talked a bunch of shit. I was like, oh, you didn't get your little thing today? Like you don't feel good? Until about that 19th, 20th day, then all of a sudden I didn't feel good. And then it was like one of my buddies hit me up and I was like, yeah, I don't feel good. I think I have the flu. And he was like, bro, you don't have the flu. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm on my way over. I did a little bit, almost instantly felt better. And he was like, yeah, man, you're dope sick. And that was like
After 20 days?
after 20 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it happens quick, man. Usually 2-3 weeks.
Well, I had done it every day. So on about that 20th day, I don't know if I didn't have the money or what the case was, but I didn't do it. That's when it hit me. I probably would have gotten sicker sooner, but
How old were you then?
22.
Oh, really? See, I'm a drinker, so, you know, I mean, I didn't really start getting like actual withdrawals till, well, I was right around the same age, but like I had started drinking way, I daily drinking at probably, I don't know, 18, 19 years old. And then around 22, 23 is when I really started noticing like the withdrawal symptoms. And it wasn't like what it was when I was 26 withdrawal symptoms. It was like, just kind of felt a little uneasy. And then I started discovering that, well, if I had a few beers, I'd feel okay. Mm-hmm. And then at 26, it was obviously a lot worse than that. But that's crazy. Those are some powerful little pills, huh?
Yeah, just in case y'all didn't hear him, he's referencing the Oxycontin 80 milligrams.
Yep. The
original OCs.
That's what started a big epidemic in our country.
Yeah.
That's really what it was. That's what got a lot of people started.
Yeah, I've talked about this on the podcast quite a bit. My dad got sick years and years and years ago, probably 25 years ago. And so all during my drinking and my addiction, my dad was prescribed oxys. But legit, like he had what's called vasculars, it's granular mitosis. His autoimmune turned on his nervous system, or his immune system turned on his nervous system and like destroyed a lot of his muscle tissue and nerve endings in his hands and in his feet. So he was taking oxys and he was taking them as prescribed. Now, the way that the system worked in Pennsylvania, and I'm almost certain it works the same way to this day, is you kind of have to fall right in line. Like, so when you get a prescription, you can't have any left over, and you can't fill your prescription too early. So you have to like be able to bring in your empty bottle, and that's that. Well, my dad didn't take them as much as he was prescribed, so he would always have leftovers. And he just, kept them, I suppose, for a rainy day. And I remember specifically, once I got sober and I started piecing this stuff together, I'm like, thank God I was never an opiate addict.
Yeah.
Because there were times where there were 2-3 bottles filled, and he would always get his script and, stuff like that. And then we ended up disposing of them and stuff like that. But I tell you, if I was an opiate addict, I would have been in a lot worse shape than what I was, and I was in pretty bad shape. But,
parents' medicine cabinet.
Yeah. It's crazy too. And, parents don't even realize it, I think, a lot of times, is that like, you have in your medicine cabinet something that can just potentially.
I feel like they're a lot more aware of that now today, since it's a lot more, it's more openly discussed.
Yeah. Well, it is now, like you said, with the fentanyl and everything. I mean, it's, and Ben, I remember, I don't know if you've said this recently, but this would be a good topic to bring up. I'm not advocating for legalizing heroin, but what would that do if you legalized heroin and let the people that want to use heroin versus, like, again, I'm not advocating for this. I think it's worth a 2-minute discussion. You got the people that are addicted to heroin, but they can't get it. And so they go and they buy it off the streets, whatever you would do to go buy heroin. Well, I don't know. Again, this isn't my space. But I feel like heroin 9 times out of 10 now has fentanyl in it.
Absolutely.
And so you can't just get heroin anymore. You can't even buy cocaine anymore without worrying if there's fentanyl in it. So what would that do? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I flip-flop back and forth on this one personally because, I've thought in the past, hey, man, maybe if you could just walk into the pharmacy and say, I need some oxys, and walk out with them, and they were affordable. Maybe people would get tired of doing them. Sure, some people would die. But then at the same time, like you also look at cities that have decriminalized this stuff that are completely falling apart with homelessness. And I mean, it's been happening in certain places, you know, California, Seattle, Oregon, like it. And I'll just call it what it is. There's been a lot of civil unrest as a result as well.
It's turning into an absolute shit show.
Like when was it? A few years ago, I went up to Boston and we went to a Red Sox game. It was the Red Sox and the Yankees. And I just remember like the police were right there, but there's literally people just lined up on the sidewalk shooting dope, putting needles in their arm. And I'm sitting in the car with the kids. We rented a car. We're driving downtown Boston. And literally, Weston's looking out the window 6 feet away from him on the sidewalk, and there's like 5 people with needles in their arm. Mm-hmm. Like, and it's like, so it's really hard to say, man. I don't know where I fall anymore. Yeah. I wish there was some way to kind of control it, because I do, in some instances, if you've listened to the podcast long enough, I do believe in harm reduction to an extent, but it has its pros and cons. I mean, there's no perfect solution is what it comes down to. We could spend way more than 2 minutes on it, but I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, so anytime I go out and I speak anywhere, I say this every time, like, drugs aren't safe anymore.
Right.
Like back in the day, like you used to be able to go out, you could take some acid, you could do a little bit of blow, you could, like you could go out and party for the night, drink, do some blow, have some fun. But like you said, like everything nowadays is cut with fentanyl. Everything. So I've know kids who are back in California who got found underneath the bleachers because they had smoked a joint. They're like 15, 16 years old. It's fentanyl in the weed. Like it's
yeah.
I don't understand, especially even from like a business aspect. Like you're literally killing your clientele. Like
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even to the point where, like, I grew up bartending down here and was in the restaurant business for a long time. Like, in South Florida's cocaine haven.
Right.
Like, you cannot get better cocaine in the United States than in South Florida back in at any time, let's call it what it is, from the 80s on.
Right.
And even lately, in the last few years, bartenders are extremely hooked into the cocaine business and nowhere to get good coke. And recently, in the last few years, even some of the old-time bartenders that I've known for 20 years are buying coke and overdosing on fentanyl. And like when people that have been that tied into the cocaine game and that's all they do is drink and do coke and that's like their culture and they've done it for a living, and they're 50-year-old bartenders that have been doing it forever. Right. When they're getting the stuff that's cut in South Florida, the cocaine wild state, like, it's not the same game anymore.
No, it's not. It's Russian roulette every single time.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's get back on track. How long were you addicted to the opiates for? Long time?
Off and on. So, I'd probably say off and on for the next 3 years or so. This is actually a funny story. I tell this one too. So, at this point in time, like I'm essentially homeless. I've gotten to the point where, if I had a bag, somebody might let me crash on the couch. They might not. Really, the only thing like I had to my name was a backpack, the tools that I used to get loaded, and a pistol. That's how I get down. That's how I run. I had burned a whole lot of bridges. I tried going to meetings. I'd been court ordered, so like I'd go to the meetings, wouldn't really pay attention, or I'd be that guy who would, nod out during the first half, and then the second half of the meeting, like I go outside and try to balance myself out, and I'm sitting there and I'm, tossing and turning for the rest of the meeting. I've been that guy. And then the next thing I know, I'm running around South Sacramento. This is Thanksgiving Eve. Oh, wow. So it has to be like 12, 13 years ago, 12 years ago, give or take. Don't have anywhere to go. Nobody will answer the phone call. So I decide it's a great idea to climb into one of those cardboard dumpsters. Where you throw the cardboard away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do my thing, and nod out. Next thing I know, I wake up like 2 or 3 hours later being picked up by the trash truck.
Oh, no.
So no, it's okay. So I tell everybody, I was like, people, whenever I tell that story, like people laugh, and they laugh because they can relate. Like it's those absolute like crazy experiences that we have when we're getting loaded, right? So like I popped my head out, and I'll never forget it. It was like a cartoon. Like his eyes like popped out of his head. So he set the can down. Like I jumped out. I'm yelling at him like, you should have fucking known that I was gonna be in there. And it's like 4:30 in the morning. Thank God he's paying attention to what he was doing. He could have, he pressed a button, it picks it up, it dumps it. Like he could have been drinking his coffee, smoking a cigarette, but luckily he was paying attention, right?
Yeah.
I ended up looking it up a couple years later, and you'd be surprised how many people die that way every year.
Really?
I'm sure,
Yeah.
dude.
It's cold, it's rainy,
Yeah. Because those things, they compact too, don't they?
Yeah, so it drops you in, and the whole thing compacts.
Oh, man.
Like, what a way to go, right?
Oh.
The Shredder survived. Ninja Turtles, bro. Remember
Turtles,
that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't remember that part, though.
At the end of Ninja Turtles 1, the first movie, he got compacted in the back of a dumpster.
And he lived?
There was
He did.
there was a Ninja Turtle 2.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
But so I went and I finished the rest of my bag, and I called one of my buddies, and I was like, hey, I think I have a problem. He was like, yeah, no shit, man. Like, well, where are you at? And so I told him. He came and picked me up, and he took me to detox. And that was like my first ever experience with treatment.
How old were you?
So it was 20, 24, 25, something like that.
You obviously didn't get it that time.
No, not that time. But that is, so like I started going to meetings, started getting involved in the fellowship. That's also where I met my wife. I met her in the rooms. At the time she had 2.5 years, and she wouldn't give me the time of day at all. Finally, after like 60, 90 days, I convinced her to go out with me. And so when I picked her up, her first question was, so how much time do you have? 54 days. She goes, oh, fuck. And I was like, why? Is that a problem? She goes, that's a huge problem. Well, why? What's wrong with that? She's like, dude, you don't even know who the fuck you are. And like, I will never forget that, because it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I really, like at that time, like I really didn't know who I was. But there was something, I don't know, there was something about that. Like I'd never been challenged like that before, especially by a female, and that's just my truth. Long story short, like fast forward, like there's a saying that we have in Northern California where it's kind of funny, kind of fucked up, but it's, I hope you feel something, find something, or fuck something that keeps you coming back. Like I don't care what it is that keeps you coming back to the rooms, but find it and hold on to it. And she made recovery attractive. Like she had work steps, like she was working traditions, like she had a sponsor, like she hit meetings regularly. And that's what made it attractive to me. So here we are, about this time I have like 15 months clean. I'd gotten a job as a union carpenter doing bridge work. We'd build bridges. Things were starting to like come together, like all the promises that we get in recovery, like, really the only promise is freedom from active addiction, but like all the things that usually come with that from not getting loaded, like started to come true for me until November 21st. I was at work, so this is a few days before Thanksgiving, and I got hurt at work. I had a 2,000-pound panel of steel fall on me. So I broke my back in 12 places, broke all my ribs, punctured collapsed lungs, shattered my knee, compounded my tib fib, shattered my ankle, broke my neck, and had a traumatic brain injury. So I was awake for this, right? So what had happened was we were dismantling the temporary bridge because we had already completed the project, and it's probably 20 feet tall, 40 feet long, and it's just made out of all steel I-beams, right? So, guy in my crew, so I would climb up it, rig up the chain, and then I'd climb down, he'd knock out these big mortar round looking pins, and he wasn't paying attention, and as I was walking up to it, he knocked out that pin, so it started to fall sideways. So I took off running, tried to jump over the K-rail, the concrete barriers on the freeway. And as I got halfway over it, it landed on top of me. So really, it should have cut me in half. Doctors all said the only reason why I survived and it didn't cut me in half was because of the shape that I was in. So they rig up a chain, they pull the thing off me, I fall backwards. I remember everybody being around me because it didn't knock me out, which is wild, which kind of good thing, kind of bad thing. But next thing I know, so everyone's standing around me and they're like, hey, like, what hurts? What hurts? And I was like, my back hurts. And they're like, okay, well, what about your legs? So my knee had shattered, so it came back this way. Then my tib-fib compounded, so that went that way. And then my ankle snapped this way, so my foot was like up by my left ear. So they're like, well, what about your legs? And I remember saying, like, I can't feel my legs. And then I just remember seeing, like, their faces kind of go blank. And I was like, I can't feel my legs. And that's when I started to panic because I realized what I just said. Like, paramedics show up. They cut all my clothes off. They tried to fit me in the ambulance. Guess I couldn't fit because how my leg was. So when she straightened out my leg, I passed out.
Oh, my God.
So the next thing I know, I wake up 10 days later, or 8 days later, and here I am hooked up to my drug of choice. Dilaudid, fentanyl. I have this little button that I can press every 15 minutes whenever I needed it. Now, those first few days I really don't remember, but from what my wife and all my friends told me, I was hitting that button like I was playing Xbox, like just subconsciously. So I remember originally they told my wife like I wouldn't make it. Then they were like, okay, he might make it, but like he's gonna lose his leg. And then it turned into, all right, we managed to save the leg, but like he's never gonna walk again. Or the statement was, you need to make peace with the idea you'll never walk again. So I stayed in that hospital for the next couple months, going through like physical therapy, speech therapy, cognitive therapy. I ended up going to, and like, mind you, like this is all really scary, right? So like I'm terrified of my own disease. I'm terrified of myself and who I become when I get loaded. And then you have my significant other, who she was just my girlfriend at the time. We've been together a little over a year and a half. And she's one of us. And here she is having to be in charge of all these different prescriptions. So we end up getting taken back to our house. She's manually like moving my legs. My legs have completely like atrophied. Like I'd lift up my leg and it would just be skin hanging. There was no muscle anywhere. And then we got a really cool opportunity. We were able to go to the Rehab Institute of Chicago. It's a world-renowned physical therapy place. And we stayed there for 2 months. 6 hours of physical, mental, speech therapy, 6 days a week. It was hard, you know. While I'm getting loaded, like being locked in a hotel room with my girlfriend with a whole bunch of pills, like that used to sound like a great time. You know what I mean? But it was really, it was hard. It was really hard. You know, my hats off to my wife. Like, that's really when I discovered that's, you know, I was going to spend the rest of my life with her, because she literally wiped my ass for 5.5 months. Like, literally. I couldn't twist. I couldn't rotate. I couldn't bend. And she attests, and gives all the credit to the program of like teaching her how to like suit up and show up for someone else. I haven't really thought about that in a while.
How long ago was that?
So that was 2014.
10 years ago?
Coming up on 9 years. Wait, my brain's still a little. Yeah, 2014.
You have it tattooed on you?
Of course.
Yeah, I
and
would
that
too.
and that date, that November 21st date, like it'll come back around as we get a little bit deeper into my story. It's a trip.
Well, let's head that way.
I'll throw this out there real quick. Like I've seen every time there's like the anniversary of it,
Right.
I see either Tara or you post something. I don't know who posts it, but you're both
Usually
tagged
both
in it or
of us.
whatever.
Yeah.
But like the videos of you doing the rehabilitation, man, and it's crazy. Like I sit there and I've watched it and I'm like, wow.
I'm hooked up to
Like,
all
dude,
sorts
he
of
was
machines.
jacked up.
I can't control my arms due to like the spinal cord injury. Like it's a trip. I'll show you sometime. It's wild.
Do you have any photos that I'd be able to insert into the YouTube video of this? Like,
Sure.
Okay. I don't know if that'd be a good thing or a bad thing to do, but I think it would put things into perspective.
Or not even that, but there's also the like little 15-second clip of me learning to walk on a treadmill for the first time, taking the first couple steps.
Yeah. So I want to get the timeline right. November 21st was the accident.
Yes.
You were in the hospital in Northern California for a couple months.
Correct.
And that was like call it ICU stay. You were were you in a medically induced coma probably for the
7 days?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you were there for 2 months, and then you said you had an opportunity to go to Chicago for the rehabilitation. Correct. You were there for another 2 months. So 4 months passes by.
Right.
And in that Chicago rehabilitation center, they were focusing on more cognitive and speech because, I mean, you had a TBI. So did you have to like relearn communication?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
So it wasn't that I couldn't speak. It was more on the, if I were to read something, one, I don't know if it would put too much strain or too much pressure on my brain, but I get these like agonizing headaches.
Oh.
But then if I were to read something like, the sky is blue and the ball is red, for whatever reason, I couldn't relay that back to you.
Uh-huh.
It just didn't. If it was too much trauma, if there was swelling on the brain, I don't know.
Yeah.
It didn't.
So were you able to, when did you start transitioning to being able to walk? Was it in Chicago?
It was. So that's when they would hook me up to these like this anti-gravity treadmill. So like you could increase and decrease the pressure. So you could make it to where you're almost weightless. And then you hook my legs up to these machines that would mimic like the walking movement for me. And really what it came down to was that it's like I broke my back in so many places that it had pinched my spinal cord. So my spinal cord was acting like it was severed. So once the swelling and all that went down in my back, that's when the feeling started to come back.
Oh, wow. You got lucky.
I remember laying there and all of a sudden, like, it's late at night and like, I remember seeing like my pinky toe twitch. And I was like, thought like, wow, like these pain meds are really good. and then like he did it again. And I was like, no way. And then I'm like, babe, wake up. So like I throw an empty like milk carton or apple juice or whatever it was. I'm like, babe, like, look. She's like, look, honey, like I know, but I don't know. Because we've been told like it's not going to happen. And sure as shit, it did it. It just slowly started to come back. Don't get me wrong, like there's still a majority of my leg is numb.
Is it? Is that what the scars down there from?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they basically did a whole reconstruction of your
Pretty
leg.
much. My knees shattered in a bunch of places, so they pretty much drilled holes in the 9 pieces that was my kneecap and just pulled the wire tight. So it's, it's not the prettiest thing, but it works.
Wow. What was that feeling like, though, for you whenever you, I can only imagine, going however long, 3-4 months thinking I'm not going to walk ever again. Not necessarily that feeling. That, I mean, I think we can all agree would suck. But like when you started to realize, and maybe it was that moment when your toe starts twitching, you have that clarity that like I'll be able to walk again. Like, do you remember when that was?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm wired different or what, but maybe it was just denial, but I wasn't willing to accept what they told me.
Okay.
Like out the gate, like that's not.
Like you had the mindset of, no, that's bullshit. I will walk.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, good. Okay.
100%. Like
yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
Do you think that mindset was?
Absolutely. 100%.
I can't hold back on this part anymore. I was going to bring this up earlier, but I'm glad I waited till now. The what you just described, and hopefully we can get some video or pictures up on this so people can see this stuff, but today you're literally like a physical specimen. I'll throw it out there. Like, he uses the same coach I use, Billy, and constantly putting up progress photos up on Instagram and Facebook. My man has a six-pack, arms the size of freaking pythons, and like, dude, you're in phenomenal shape. Like, and that's the crazy thing, dude, is like the mindset that drug addicts and alcoholics have. Like you said, you're built different, whatever that means. But like, dude, this is where I tell you, like, I feel like drug addicts have like a superpower. Absolutely. When we get clean and sober, we put our mind to anything, we get it done. And I think that everything that we go through with that addictive personality, the consequences, all that stuff, like, if you can get through that, like, it can get you through things like this too. And you didn't just get to the point where you walk. You're in better shape than 95% of the population out there that even steps foot into the gym. Like, dude, you show up to the gym and you're probably one of the most in shape people in there. Like, my point is like that, again, that mindset of you didn't just like get a little better, dude. In my opinion, for what the situation is, you like got better and then excelled beyond the average person. It's wild.
Yeah, if I didn't know any better, I think that you blew out your knee and you had a knee surgery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, you see a lot of times people that have accidents like this, and they're in a wheelchair for the rest of their life. And I'm not saying that they don't have the same willpower as you did in the moment. Like,
but a lot of people give up.
A lot of people do give up. Yeah.
It's I don't want to say it's human nature, but we tend to find like the easier, softer way. Right.
So let's start, because we're already 45 minutes in, and we haven't even gotten to the recovery side of things.
All right, so here I am. I've like learned to walk again. Now, mind you, like, I've been clean for 15 months. So like people they'd already known my wife, and then they knew that we got together, and like, it's always super frowned upon when you have somebody with time and then a newcomer. It usually doesn't end up well. I don't know, here we are, like the 1 in a million shot where it actually like worked out. Like, I had started working steps, like here she is. She's at like 4 years clean at this point. We built this beautiful life. They saw through social media of us, like me getting in this accident, her taking care of me. And as crazy as this sounds, but we almost became like famous in an anonymous program. Like, our story was getting shared everywhere from California to like Jersey, Texas, Utah, Oregon. Like, I'm getting like people hit me up on Facebook like, oh my God, your story's so inspiring, yada, yada, yada. We're going all over California to like speak and share our experience. And that was really cool. But it also, like, we put ourselves kind of like on this fucking pedestal, and that was fine, well, and good until it wasn't, right? So, like, that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself and to take on. So, all the doctors had always told me, like, look, dude, like, because they knew from the get-go, like, hey, check it out. Like, I'm an addict. So, like, when I can get off these things, like, I need to get off these things. And I had 6, 7 different doctors tell me, dude, there's no way for the rest of your life, like, you're going to be on something. Like, you have to. Like, it's not an option. So I accepted that. I worked through that. And like, what we did once we got home was, for the first like 3 or 4 months after my accident, anytime I took something, I'd shoot a text and we'd write it down. Like, I'd shoot a text to my sponsor, hey, I just took this at this time. it was a way for us to hold ourselves accountable, because as much as it's dangerous for me, like, she's in the program too. She has to handle these same fucking pills. And I did that, and I took them as prescribed for the next 3 years until that day that I didn't. See, for me, like, I have a really good forgetter. Like, I can forget where I come from and fall into the like work, family, doing all these things. So after getting hurt, they told me that, like, one, I'd never be able to have kids because of all the internal damage. So that broke my heart, because that was always something that I always wanted to be a father. That was always hugely important to me. So that kind of broke my heart, but I came into acceptance about that, realized, like, hey, if anything, like, we can adopt some kids. Like, there's a lot of kids that are born in some really fucked up situations. So I went back to work for that same company that I got hurt at, went back as a safety manager, started working out of town. Things started to get good. We ended up having this, like, miracle child, which is my daughter, who you met just a few minutes ago, or I guess almost an hour ago. I started working out of town. On that pill bottle, it says take every 4 to 6 hours or as needed for pain. So as I'm not going to as many meetings because I'm working a lot more, as I'm not answering the phone to sponsees or my sponsor because I'm tired, I'm working, trying to provide for my family, I start lying to myself. And then here I am. It's like you talked about, like, it's 3 days before I'm supposed to refill my prescription, and I'm all out of my meds. So what do? I go play the Hey Mister game. I'm 3 hours from home. Hey, I need to find this. I need to find that. No, I don't know where, but you could probably find it over, right across the street. I go across the street. There's this guy and his girlfriend sitting on the park bench, and they're fixing. And just like that, at 4.5 years clean, I was like, hey, I'll buy you some if you get me a bag. And I gave up 4.5 years clean.
Wow.
Just like that. It's the same story that we hear time and time again. Didn't go to as many meetings, stopped staying connected. I stopped doing the things that got me to that position in my life. So I used for the next 3 days, refilled my prescription. I didn't touch that again. But then the next month, I came up short like 4 or 5 days. And then it slowly progressed. So for me, like, small permissions lead to big ones. Whether that be when it comes to drugs, or even like diet, Oh, it's okay if I eat this.
That's me.
I've heard.
Yeah. That's me.
It tends to be a lot of us, but, like, that's my small permission. Like, oh, it's okay if I just have this. And then, oh, well, I've already fucked it off for the day, so I might as well have this, that, and the other. I'm really good at lying to myself. So go back and forth for a little bit. My wife knows. I play the whole, like, in and out of treatment a couple times. I tried doing, like, the methadone thing. I tried doing the Suboxone thing. I tried getting off all the pain meds and using Suboxone as a pain maintenance. They put me on, 32 milligrams a day. That didn't work. I tried swapping that out, just smoking pot, because don't you know that would work. I tried all the different ways. Nothing worked. Same thing would happen. I get 90 days, 6 months, get loaded again. And mind you, this whole time, like, I'm still married. My wife is still very much there. But it's like that. It's that old saying of, you hang out the barbershop long enough, like, you're going to get a haircut. You hang around the disease long enough, the disease is usually going to win. And in this situation, like, I was the disease to my wife. I was the barbershop. She was hanging around long enough. And after almost She had almost 10 years clean. And she finally succumbed. Now, mind you, at this point, like, I was rationalizing, justifying. I was selling my prescriptions, buying other ones that were cheaper. Next thing I know, like, I find these, like, start getting these little blue pills. Thought they were just 30 milligram oxys from Mexico. Turns out they were just pressed fentanyl pills. And that was really like the beginning of probably like the hardest bottom I've ever experienced, which is kind of what got me here today. Inevitably, like, I'm running and gunning again, like I'm selling drugs, I'm selling guns, I'm doing all this. I'm doing all this with, like, my wife at home and my kid at home. Like, I put my daughter and my wife in a lot of harm's way. I'll never forget this. So she, like, when I get loaded, my job, my wife, my kid, everybody get in the way of me using. As much as I love them and adore them, and you've only known me clean, you've only known me here, they get in the way of me using. But I'll never forget it. My daughter, at the time, she was only 3, and, like, all she wanted was my attention. And she walked up as I'm trying to smoke this thing off of foil, and she blew out the lighter. She's 3 years old. Now, she doesn't know what she's doing, but all she knows is that thing is what's distracting Daddy's attention from her. And you think that would be enough. You think that'd be that thing that, like, it's like that jarring experience that would, make me do something different. It wasn't. It definitely wasn't. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. My wife's the type that when she's ready to stop, she's like, all right, I'm going to go to treatment on Monday. So for the next 3 days before that, she'll, like, do less and less and less. So, her detox isn't as bad. Me, I'm the type where
do more and more.
Oh, I'm riding it till the wheels fall off, and then I'm fucking shoving 50 or 100 of those pills in my ass and smuggling them into detox. That's just me. That's how I get down. So we go to treatment, in and out, getting stuff delivered to me, getting kicked out of detoxes left and right. Mind you, so, like, at this, in between this time, I got in a settlement from getting hurt. This is like 5 years later. So I have, 350, 400 grand in the bank. And a nasty habit.
Oh, no.
Nasty habit. So I'm wasting however many thousands, selling them, trying to do this, buying guns, buying all sorts of stupid shit. And then it comes down to it, I ended up paying cash to go to treatment. Which actually is not, actually, now that I think about it, that's not the first time that I met you. I met you before Weston's football game.
Where at?
Where I went to detox. Because you came to see me to tell me about rock.
What detox was that at? I don't remember this.
PBRC.
Really?
Yeah. It's wild. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
I don't remember that. I can't believe that.
So like, I have all this money. I've blown through probably 150 grand of it. Don't have shit to show for it. My wife went to treatment, went to detox for 7 days, got out, has stayed clean since. That's how she operates. It took her almost losing her and my daughter, where she was just like, look, like, I love you and I'm not doing this out of spite, but our daughter is not going to grow up and have to recover from growing up. Like, I'm not going to allow that. So she puts me on a flight, ships me to South Florida. Paid cash to go to detox. Stayed there for 14 days. I was supposed to stay for 28. Manipulated my way out of it. Don't you know I've been clean before? I've had time. I've sponsored people. I know how to do this. Like, all I need to do is get out of here. And then I can actually start, like, working on myself. I went to a meeting hall. It's in this area. Sat in the back. Didn't raise my hand. They asked if there's any newcomers or new people to the meeting. Didn't say anything. I'm outside waiting for my Uber. Somebody came by and said, hey, if you want something, I got it. And, like, here I am 14 days clean. No, man, like, I don't got what I want. And now thinking back, like, even just entertaining that or replying subconsciously, I still wanted to use. That's really what it comes down to. I still wanted to get high. Because I won't lie, like, coming to South Florida, I always heard about the blow in South Florida. Like, I always wanted to try it. We go back and forth. Long story short, he's got opiates and the route of administration that I like. So I use, and I overdosed sitting out front of that meeting hall. Literally directly out front of it. I've never overdosed before. It was a first for me. It scared me. Woke up in the ambulance. They let me go a few hours later. And my disease thinking was not, oh, I probably shouldn't do that again. It was, man, I just need to get an upper so I can balance them out. I just got to find that magic combination, right? So what do? I call that same guy back the very next day. Continue to use for the next week or so. My wife is supposed to come out here. She can sense something's wrong, so she comes out a couple days early. As soon as she sees me, she gives me that look. I'm like, no, I'm good, I swear. We get to our Airbnb where we were going to stay, and first thing she does is she pulls out like a 17-panel piss cup out of her suitcase. Bam, slaps it on the table. Go fill this up. What? You don't trust me? You don't believe me? She goes, no, I don't. Strip and let's go take this. I do. Thing lights up like a Christmas tree, obviously. Oh, the cup must be faulty. Like, yeah, it's faulty for your few favorite things. Like, you're full of shit. She packs her stuff back up, calls my aunt who lives here, and went and stayed with her. And here I was left by myself. I had a little bit left. I tried to use it. You know, the needles clogged. One of them broke. And I couldn't get high that day. The one that I started pressing on ended up exploding all over the bathroom wall. And what's a trip is, if you remember that November 21st date, right? Here I am trying to get high on November 21st, and I couldn't do it. So November 21st is my clean date. Kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a God shot for me.
Yeah.
Wild.
You know, like I survived twice. You know, because at this time, like, I'm already, like, I'm full on using fentanyl, straight fentanyl, mixing that with, like, crack or coke or whatever you find on the streets around here. And here I am, like, with money, with substances, and randomly, like, needles break. I don't know. It was kind of an aha moment for me. So I ended up going back to that same detox, staying for another 2 weeks. And then I started going to meetings regularly. I started getting connected, start making some friends. Like personally, like I practice a Narcotics Anonymous program. For me, I get more out of the step work, I guess. It's just, what my experience has been. I'm very much a believer in whatever it is that keeps you clean, sober, whatever your fucking terminology is, like, run with it. If it works for you, it works for you. Now I'm sitting in a meeting, and this is like, at this point I have like 6 or 9 months clean. Like, I'd gone to some AA meetings, I'd gone to NA meetings, I'd gotten an AA sponsor, had worked a few steps, but something didn't sit right because, like, I've always worked in Narcotics Anonymous program, like, through and through. So I'm sitting in an NA meeting, and I was back at that same meeting hall where I overdosed, right? And I've been trying to find the guy who saved my life, because all he told me was it was some big, tall, bald dude who, mind you, this is like kind of like the middle of COVID. So, like, here I am overdosing, and there's 25 people standing around me. No one wants to touch me. I got snot coming out and all sorts of shit. And nobody would touch me. And here comes this dude, and I guess he started smacking the shit out of me. Doing like chest compressions. Because all I remember is, like, the next day, like, my face was swollen, like my chest hurt, like felt like it caved in my chest. It's like 6-9 months go by, and, like, I'm hitting these meetings, and I keep trying to find this guy, and I keep hearing from random people at meetings like, "Oh, that was you. You were that dude. I know the guy who saved you." I'm like, tell him thank you. Like, tell him I want to meet him. In some way, somehow, like, our paths never crossed. I'm at a meeting, and I hear this guy speak. I like what he has to say. So I go up to him, and I'm like, "Hey, man, like, I'm looking for a sponsor. Like, are you taking on anybody?" "No, I'm not, but here, take my number just in case." We exchange numbers. Like, I just have this weird feeling. It's like the next day he texts me. He's like, "Hey, man, it was great to meet you last night. Like, like, I think that was on a Wednesday." He's like, "Same meeting meets on Friday." And so I was talking to my wife, and I was like, "Dude, I have a feeling like that this is that guy." She was like, "Well, ask him." I was like, "What do you mean ask him? Like, what do I say? Like, hey, bro, did you find somebody that, like, OD'd like 9 months ago outside?" She was like, "Yeah." So I did, and long story short, turns out it was him. Kind of another God shot for me, because, like, that's who my sponsor is today. Haven't gone through that story in a while. Everything's a trip. It really is. I haven't sat and, like, told that much or that in depth of, like, my story in a long time. And I'm sure there's shit that I've probably forgotten in there, but it's crazy that I'm crazy
here to share it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you got, Ben?
I don't know.
That's a ride, man. That's a ride. I talk about a lot of times, the thing that was going through my head at one point, and this was like 10, 15 minutes ago, was like, dude, I can't imagine being in a situation. It's one of my biggest fears where, like, I better be unconscious if you're putting an opiate in my body. Like, and totally against my will, because I'm the kind of guy, man, you put even a little in me and that phenomenon of craving, dude, and I'm done.
Awesome.
Like, yeah, it's terrifying. It really is. Like, so I can't imagine being in a position where you're injured that badly. I don't know how you took pills prescribed for 3 years. Like, I don't, dude, because I would not have been able to do that.
My desire to stay clean was greater than my desire to use.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. I don't know, but for me, regardless of desire, the phenomenon of craving is so powerful.
Oh, it is.
So powerful.
Well, and that's
that's where I want to give you credit.
Well, and that's also what's a trip. So part of moving to South Florida was that, well, we did all that in, like, our 90 days of infinite wisdom. We're like, hey, let's move to South Florida. Leave everything we know. Sounds great. I'm grateful that we did, because the cold in Northern California, like, I got a lot of metal in my body, dude. Like, I hurt. When it's cold, like, I hurt. I think you've seen it when we've been at the gym. Like if I overwork, you'll see my leg violently shake. Like I have these spasms where
Tara pointed that out the other day. I just so happened to run into you guys last weekend, the weekend before, and you guys were doing a leg day, and all of a sudden your legs started going. Tara's like, "You ever seen that before?" I'm like, "No."
It's called clonus. Like it's a violent shake, and I can't control it. It comes from my spinal cord. It's.
How long does it go for before it goes away?
So it used to happen like 15 or 20 times a day. Now it usually happens when I'm either too cold or like I'm tired. After training legs, something like that. But every time I train legs, it happens a little bit less and less. I've had it last anywhere from like 30 seconds to like 7 or 8 minutes.
Wow.
It fucking hurts.
Does it? It hurts.
Oh, yeah. It vibrates all the way up through my back, and then I'm usually hurting for the next couple days.
Are you able to do like a lot of the same workouts as, like full range of motion stuff, like squats and stuff like that?
For the most part. I mean, I have a bunch of plates and screws in my ankle, so it doesn't bend as far. So
Right.
like range of motion's
Limited.
just a little bit, but
I mean, working out with them, dude, like you said earlier, because we've trained together numerous times. I would have thought he just blew out his knee if I didn't know this whole backstory and saw the videos of him like walking on that treadmill thing and like that, I don't know, that suit.
full harness, it
Yeah.
suspends you off the ground.
Looks like body armor.
Yeah.
It's wild.
The guy that knocked that pin out, have you talked to him ever since that day?
No. See.
Did you ever harbor resentment towards him?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure.
150%.
Do you now?
Without a doubt. No. I think he would benefit from a 12-step program.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
I can't imagine from his perspective and like, in recovery, we talk about put yourself in the other person's shoes, so to speak, as a generic way to put it.
Right.
The shame and guilt of knowing that you made that mistake.
Well, and his whole thing was that he said that it wasn't that he didn't do it, it's that that pin was somehow already knocked out, so it wasn't him.
Oh, he didn't assume responsibility.
No, not at all. So,
Well, the thing doesn't just randomly fall on you.
exactly. It was held together by something to stay up.
How much did it weigh?
Roughly 2,000 pounds.
Wow. What are you doing for work now?
So I work in the construction industry. I work for a construction management company.
You build some fancy houses
You're familiar with this area?
on the ocean,
Yeah.
dude.
Familiar with Manalapan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All those up and down the coast.
Bro, mansions.
20, 25, 30,000 square feet.
Wow. That's a remarkable story, dude. We're going to have you on part 2.
Absolutely. I love it because
Yeah. I know there's so much more we can get
There's a whole
into.
lot more. It really is.
So we need to schedule that up, Ben, for
Yeah.
maybe not next week because we won't be here, or I won't be here. I think I'm going to take all next week. FYI.
Get out, dude.
What?
Okay.
I'm already out Tuesday through Friday. So what's the Monday?
That's a good point. I can't. Yeah. Kind of pointless. Hey, well, that's how it worked out that I'm able to be here today was because my daughter has spring break this week and I work a lot. So I took Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off work to spend spring break with her. And
Okay.
My wife generously voluntold me that I was going to do the podcast. So
He gets voluntold a lot in that
I
relationship.
I do.
Dude, I love it how you
you
said earlier.
It's okay.
No woman has ever challenged me like her. When you were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like for what she did for you, she has every right in the world now,
I mean,
wiping your ass for 5 months. And
yeah, but we're like 11 years into the relationship now.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Yes,
I
she
know.
absolutely does.
I mean, the fact that you had a Laura too, because you briefly went over that, where like you were saying, you know, you weren't supposed to be
I
able
went
to
to
have
5
kids.
different specialists, did the things with the cups, and they were like, dude, no offense, but like, you have like 12 swimmers, and they're almost all like swimming the wrong way and like chasing their own tail. Like, there's not a shot in hell, man. It's like, okay, so might be sharing too much, but I was having her like stand on her head, you know, trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Like I wanted a kid, you know.
Your daughter's so sweet too, man. She's an angel.
How old is she now?
7.
Yeah.
So although, yes, she has seen me loaded, I don't know if she'll remember any of it. But one thing I do know now is that, like, while taking those pain meds, even as prescribed, like, my base level was never, like, fully clean. Like, and I didn't realize that because I had taken them for so long that that's, like, all I really knew at the time. But now being off of everything completely for the last, I have, like, 3.5 years now. Whether I realized it or not then, but, like, I was still a little fucked up. Like it does impair your judgment whether you realize it or not. And that was my experience, whether it be like Suboxone maintenance or taking pain meds as prescribed, like even following it to a T or taking it less than, like I was still slightly impaired. So when it came the opportunity to like get high, like chances of me doing that are a lot greater than if I'm completely abstinent from everything.
I'm glad you brought that up in that manner because, you know, I'm the type of person I never tell anybody whether they're sober or not. So for instance, like if somebody's on Suboxone,
yeah,
none of my business, dude. And I've shared this on the podcast before where like I've had sponsees come to me that are now sponsoring. They're like, hey man, I met a guy on Suboxone. Would you take him through steps? I'm like, yeah, I'd take him through steps. Mm-hmm. That's the way that I look at it. Now, right. I know other people feel differently, stuff along those lines. Because my hope is that if I expose to somebody to 12 steps, that they'll get the desire, so to speak, to be completely clean. But what I was getting at is like one of the discussions that we constantly have on the podcast is like, and just using Suboxone as the example, like you're saying, you're just, whether you realize it or not, you're not cognitively there.
Not 100%, you're not.
I sat down with a guy the other day, you know, who's been on Suboxone for 1.5 years at a high dose, and I was telling him, man, if you're looking for quality of life, you just know right now, I can look at you. I am a junkie. I can look you in the eye and tell you that you are not cognitively as smart right now or on point right now as you would be if you were completely clean. You know, so it's that is there. And the other part that I want to bring up lastly, because we discussed this with Dr. T, I really quick, I know we've been going a long time, but I just think it's remarkable, and the way that I interpret it is, dude, look at what you've been through physically. If anybody could justify continuing to take pain pills today, it's you. Point blank, period.
Absolutely.
And here you are not taking them. So it's a possibility. You know what I'm saying?
It's absolutely a possibility, but it also, what people have to realize is like, it's not fucking easy. There are days where I have to listen to my body and I have to like, hey man, you got to skip the gym. I'm going to have to tell my kid, like, no, I can't go roughhouse and run around and play. Like, there are days that I have to listen to my body. I do. But it is possible. But I also go to the gym. I take care of myself. I strengthen those muscles that are around those injured areas, and it allows me to, my quality of life has improved tremendously. Like, the biggest thing that has contributed to me being able to get back to a almost normal life is going to the gym.
Dude, I love that you brought that up too.
It really is.
Obviously, we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, but like my diet too. I eat a bunch of shitty foods. Like I feel like shit. I do. If I don't train, if I'm not taking care of myself, and it doesn't have to be, you know, going to the level of like trying to compete, but just simply like working out a few days a week. Like there's nothing better for my mental aspect than like going to the gym. Like it calms me down. Like I go to the gym 5 a.m. So like that's my me time. So like what I do for me by 7 a.m. is more than most people do shit all year.
Yeah. What'd you say about him competing?
I said he is going to compete.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, I have a show coming up in November.
Oh, nice.
We'll see. Well, it's kind of one of those things where I'd always wanted to do it. I'd always talked myself out of it. And then, especially recently, like seeing those videos, honestly, he was a huge influence to it. Because he was like, yeah, I used to. And then all of a sudden he's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it. Why not? And it inspired me. So it was one of those things where like, I've always wanted to do this. Shit, they told me I'd never walk again. Why the fuck not?
Right.
That's wild.
The only thing that's stopping me is like me and my own mental. Like,
yeah. Oh, that's remarkable.
I know.
so
dude.
why not?
Yeah.
Going from never being able to walk again to stepping on a stage at like in a bodybuilding show. That's
Well,
saw-
and
wow.
it's going to be a trip too. So like, the show is also in November. I don't know exactly what day yet.
Oh, what if it's November
hoping it'll be the
21st?
21st.
get out, bro.
Hoping
That'd be
it would
pretty wild.
I'm going to start looking it up now. I'm going to find you one on November 21st. Sure, there's one somewhere.
There has to be.
Let me ask you a random question.
Okay.
Are your teeth, do you have veneers?
Yeah, they're fake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, they're perfect.
No.
Okay.
Another consequence of getting loaded. You use substances, you don't take care of yourself.
Yeah. When did you get those?
3 years ago.
Another gift of sobriety, though.
And the
You were
last few
able-
grand that I had saved from that accident.
That's cool. That's a cool part of the story, too. You took the last of your money and got...
No, the last of my money I used was to pay for my wife to go to treatment, to go to detox, for myself to go to detox out here. And we put a year's rent up front, moved to Florida.
Oh, nice.
Paid a year's rent up front. That way we could move here, try to find a support group, try to find meetings to go to, and try to start a life out here.
Yeah.
And don't
That's
get me wrong,
awesome.
I still kick, not so much anymore because I've gotten past that, but it took me a long time to get over the fact that I blew through all that fucking money.
Yeah.
But really, when you think about it, like blowing through all that money and that whole experience and everything I've gotten, like gone through, has brought me to here right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like that. Remember those commercials that would come on and then at the end it would say priceless. You know what
Yeah,
I'm talking about?
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like that.
Is that MasterCard?
MasterCard commercials.
MasterCard. Yeah.
It is. It's the MasterCard
Yeah.
commercial.
No, that's awesome. That's a heck of a story, dude. I'm glad you came on, but we do have to have you come back on because I'd like to get into more of the recovery side of it, you know, like what you're doing for that. And like, maybe we can have some healthy, not debate, but discussion amongst differences in the programs. You know, Ben, he's
look,
staunch.
We do this
AA does
anytime
not-
I'm around him.
Well, they were doing it when I walked in.
I know.
And that's why I was like, is this podcast content? And Ben's like, no. And Tara's like, yes.
Everything is podcast content.
Dude, it's more like when Stevie Buckets and I go back and forth. It's friendly banter. At the end of the day,
I know, yeah.
Call it what it is, man. People get clean and sober in both programs.
Yeah, of
It's,
course.
I'm of the camp, man. I got no problem. I am a junkie with junkies being in Alcoholics Anonymous. Like,
Yeah,
vice versa.
Right.
You know,
Like I said, I just get more out of the step work. I don't like to have to try to decipher words from fucking 100 years ago to try to understand it.
I will give
Yeah.
you that. It does take. If it wasn't for my
Sucks.
sponsor sitting down, who was an expert on the literature,
Right.
to explain every single thing that was in there.
I just know that's deterred a lot of people.
Yeah. I'll be
I would love a new edition, you know?
I'll be straight up with you. Like it's you really have to be willing to study the textbook of Alcoholics Anonymous. It goes super deep and it
does.
touches on every single detail of recovery that you could possibly think of. But for me, it did take somebody to
You
show
just need
me.
an interpreter.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I know every time we have somebody on that works a solid NA program and like they explain it, I see the appeal. You know what I mean? Like it makes total sense, you know? Because I was always I'm not like I'm with Ben. I don't care what you do. So I don't care if you do whatever the hell you want. But I was always like, especially early on, you know, like the 1 to 3, 1 to 5 range. I'm like, but I've also only been to like 2 or 3 NA meetings my whole entire life, you know? So, and that was in treatment, you know? So it was like, I don't know what NA consists of.
It also goes back to geographical big time. I bring this up all the time.
100%.
To be straight up with you, the NA and in the northern part of Palm Beach County is weak. But if I go to
down to Broward,
if I go to
Minnesota, like
it's strong. But if I go to Minnesota to go to AA meetings, I'm like, oh my gosh, but the NA in Minnesota is fire.
Same thing in California. So like California is the birthplace of Narcotics Anonymous. So
is it?
It is. So you go out there, it's a game changer. Out here, like it's prominent.
Yeah,
there is a deeper community, and really like there are better AA meetings out here. But at least for like myself and my wife, I know that like we're trying to bring about the change that we hope to see. Like, so we're finding a lot of those meetings, and we're starting to organize and starting to bring that aspect of Narcotics Anonymous to South Florida.
See,
at least that's the hope.
See, I love that because it does take good members, and this goes for all 12-step fellowships, AA, NACA, whatever A, dude. Where a lot of people will show up to a meeting, they'll be like, oh, I don't like this meeting anymore. It's off track and this, that, the other. I'm like, so be the person that shows up, carries the message, and makes a difference and change the culture of that meeting. Because I find a lot of people, they go selfishly. And my sponsor taught me, if you want to get something out of a meeting, you better bring something to it. So I love going to meetings where the message is weak and you bring in a message and people start to, because it took guys like that for me in AA. I always bring them up. A guy named Ron V and this girl Tara Cannon. I don't know if she'd probably kill me because she's an AA. Like traditions, don't use my last name.
I'll cut it out.
Yeah, but when they started talking that big book language for the first time ever, I was like, "Whoa, dude! Where are they learning this stuff from?" They were the first people to really open my eyes to like, I know very little about recovery. And I was like inspired by the things that they were saying. Every time that they shared or spoke, cool. I was on the edge of my seat.
Right.
Like, and I was like, I want to be like that. Right. And it takes people like that, man. Like,
yeah.
So go to a meeting and make a difference. That's the attitude to have.
We got to wrap this up. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was good.
Ben, any final thoughts?
No, man. Thanks for coming on, dude. And, I'm proud of you, man. Like hearing that story is super inspiring. And I think, I hope at some point you can get a chance to come speak to our clients too, like alumni on a Wednesday night, especially the ones that like stub their pinky toe and they need, I need 80s for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Well, that was actually the first time I've been to Rock was I came out here and spoke for Steve.
Okay. Right.
Oh, did you?
That was probably a year and a half ago, I'm guessing.
Oh, nice.
Word.
It's been a while.
Yeah, you got to come back out.
Well, dude, you guys are 11 minutes from my house.
All right. Yeah.
Whenever. Anytime.
Awesome.
Recovery never said no to me.
I like it. Recovery never said no to me. Should put that on a shirt or something.
Absolutely. Hey, I like to do reps, work steps. That's
cool too.
I hashtag a lot of my pictures with that. And
right on.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And join our Facebook group and our Facebook support group. You could just go onto Facebook, type in Real Recovery Talk. Please make sure to put the talk in there because there's somebody that has a Real Recovery Facebook page. That's not what we're referring to. Real Recovery Talk in the support group. And you'll see a lot of banter going on in there. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.